Today I'd like to talk to you about the basics of mantra. Now, I by no means call myself an expert on Sanskrit or any of the traditions and the religions or anything. I'm not an expert at all, but what I'd like to share with you is my experience, and I've had extensive experience with my mantra practice. I've chanted millions of mantras in different disciplines, and I've noticed some great side effects from it. Mantra is a powerful way to change your life. It's a powerful way. It's not the only way, but it is a powerful way. And the reason for this is there are certain languages or sounds that resonate with healing your energetic system, which the sounds also assist in removing blockages, belief systems, constrictions, things that prevent you from being free in this moment. Now, when you become free in this moment in different parts of your energetic system, there are very real side effects in your life that you will observe, and I have also observed, and some of them have been expected, some of the changes, and some of the changes have been absolute surprises to me. So I'd just like to talk to you a little bit about just a couple basics. One of the basics is when you take a mantra discipline on and you say, I want to do maybe the Lakshmi mantra for increased abundance and love and prosperity in my life, and you go Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha, Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha. The basic understanding of a mantra discipline is it takes a certain amount of time or repetitions before the energy can stabilize in your system. So the standard number for amount of mantras that you should chant is 108. Now the reason why is there are a certain amount of channels in the body that get stimulated once you hit the 108 threshold. Okay, so and what I mean by body is I mean energetic body, spiritual body, physical body, all of it all together. Okay, so here's a mala, and this might be in focus or might not, but I make my own malas because I go through them so much, because I use my mala so much and I carry it around. I remember Namadeva spoke a absolutely do not carry a mala around and chant your mantras, and I was a little bit of a rebel there, so I have been doing that, and so I look like a crazy man carrying around my little baby blanket everywhere I go, chanting my mantras, but that's how I keep track. So it's hard to keep track in your mind if you want to know when you get to certain numbers. Now, first of all, the 108 is very important. So you chant the mantra 108 times in the morning and 108 times at night for a full 40 days. Now, around day 35, day 36, maybe earlier, maybe later, you'll notice something will be happening. Most likely the opposite thing that you expect, such as if you're doing a Lakshmi discipline for prosperity, you may notice you have some obstacles come up that create more poverty in your life, or maybe some love obstacles come up where you have a fight with a loved one or something at day 36, day 38. But ultimately what happens is this energy is being released from the internal depths of you, okay, the very deep inside of you, and it's being released in your aura. So then your environment will start to show up with that energy. But even the environment is becoming free because you have freed yourself. So it'll only be a period of time, if you keep doing the mantra, keep doing the discipline, where the environment will change or it will heal. What happens in that case is entirely dependent on your karma and your situation. But ultimately this energy will make room for itself. So if there's a change that's needed to happen in your life, that change will happen. Or if there is just a more harmonious way to conduct your relationships or your interactions, that will also happen. And of course, the side effect will be more prosperity in some way, shape, or form. And prosperity and love, for instance, with the Lakshmi, it has to do with true abundance. It's not as much to do with money and with lands and with all these things that we're trained into in our Western society to crave, but it has to do with what is truly going to make you happy, what is truly unconditional happiness for you, and it will take you deeper into that. So that's the first thing, 108 mantras a day in the morning and 108 at night. That's the very minimum discipline to do if you wish to conduct your own experiment to see what the energy will do for you. Now, whether you should chant the mantra out loud or silently or whisper it, it's totally up to you. I have heard that it's more powerful if you whisper it, or I mean say it quietly. Actually, it's more powerful if you say it quietly. But I've also heard a lot of people say the stuff out loud, and out loud it's extremely powerful too. So I do it both ways, and then sometimes I'm whispering it, so 3 different ways I chant the mantra. And I've noticed that I've had profound effects, and my disciplines have not been affected in any way negatively to change it around. So you don't have to just do it one way. Do it every way. As long as you're doing it, you are still invoking that energy, because it's spiritual sound we're talking about, not literal sound. Literal sound is a side effect from spiritual sound. It's not a necessity, okay? So, yeah, so when you chant the mantra, don't worry about whether you're chanting it out loud or silently. As long as you're chanting it in your head, you're still good. And that's how I get away with most of my mantras, because if I chanted all my mantras out loud, my voice would probably wear out. How many mantras I've chanted and every day for the last several years. So the other thing is, there are a lot of people out there that are spiritual perfectionists. Okay, so they want to chant the mantra exactly right. And I commend them on this. It's great to have the mantra with as great a pronunciation as you know how. Okay, to pronounce the mantra as best as you can. But one thing that helped me very much from the Guru Namadeva is that he said, when a mother sees her child babble its first words, does she love it any less when the words don't come out right? So in that essence and in that tradition, I have chanted the mantras, and yes, there have been mantras that I have chanted wrong, or there have been subtle mispronunciations, but yet I have still achieved miraculous side effects with the mantras. So what I would recommend to you is that if you're nervous about chanting them wrong, follow your teacher as best you can, or follow the teaching that you have been provided as best you can, but don't get too wrapped up in doing it exactly right. Because what happens is you'll actually discourage yourself from doing it at all. And I've seen this also in my years when I was bodybuilding and lifting weights. I would see many women and men come and go in the gym and in the fitness industry, and they get so wrapped up with the details of how to do things that they would get discouraged and just stop altogether. See, this is how the mind interacts with you and destroys all your goals and ambitions and your happiness. It will come in and say, you're not doing it right. See, we have an internal critic, and that is the mind. And it will come in to destroy any happiness you have. So I would say, don't let it happen to you. Don't buy into it. Just do it as best you can, and it will work. Trust me on this. I have conducted my own experiments for the last 6 years, and it does work. So the other type of a discipline I'd like to say or talk to you about is the discipline where you chant the mantra as many times as you can every day until you get to at least 125,000 repetitions. 125,000 repetitions is called something called Mantra Siddhi. Now, Mantra Siddhi has to do with the first real release or settling of the power of the mantra in your entire being, okay? And you will notice something very, it'll be very obvious. There'll be a blessing, or there'll be a certain experience come in when you chant a mantra 125,000 times. So this is why I keep track, because it's fun to watch when I get to around that repetition range with a mantra to see what experience comes about, what new interaction with reality becomes a side effect, what senses open up. Or what sense that I didn't know I had opens up. Where's my newfound awareness going? So if you have dedication and you really want to delve into this mantra path, I'd highly recommend just delving headfirst right into it, just go in there. So now the last thing I would like to talk about is something called spiritual cleansing. Okay, so Namadeva once again expressed this in the best way. He said, when you start to clean a dirty pool with a vacuum cleaner, you just stick the hose in there, you start cleaning up, all the muddy water from the bottom comes up to the surface, and then the water that is actually cleaner will start to look really dirty. So in this likeness, This happens with your energetic being when you start to do spiritual work. So spiritual disciplines, whether they're mantra, meditation, pranayama, even introspection, who am I, who is the self, this sort of thing. You'll start to release layers of suffering that you've been carrying around. Now, when this happens, you will start to feel the suffering. The suffering will come up, but you don't have to buy into it, don't believe it, it's just there. Now, if it gets too extreme, it's okay to back off on your spiritual discipline a little bit. If it's just too much for you to handle, it's too much anger, too much depression, too much boredom. The boredom is one of the trickier spiritual cleanses that comes up. I fell for that one a few times before I realized what was going on. And if you just allow yourself to feel those emotions or feel that suffering or feel maybe anxiety, whatever it might be, and it'll go. It'll start to alleviate itself and it will start to move. Okay, so it's nothing to be afraid of. It's just another energy that's being released, something that you've been carrying around your whole life, maybe for more than one life, and it will start to return back to its source and then transform into something else. Now, I thought that was the last thing I was going to talk about, but there's actually one more thing I'm going to talk about. This is when you chant a mantra for a specific purpose, many things can happen. So, for instance, if you chant the Great Rama Healing Mantra, it's common for you to have a new energy come in and perhaps miraculously heal some condition or problem you're dealing with. It may be mental, emotional, it may be systemic, like a disease, it may be the release of some sort of chronic ache, like arthritis. This can happen. But remember, the energy of healing is actually what you're invoking, so it can move in many different ways. Okay, so when the energy of healing comes into your life, it may produce a specific medicine, practitioner, or technique that will heal your problem or condition. So, like many people on the spiritual path, myself included, will do a specific discipline and then say, okay, I'm going to wait for the energetic blessing or the healing to come in rather than take the most obvious path. I guess it would be akin to doing a mantra for becoming great at tying your shoes, but instead of just bending over and just tying your shoes in the first place. It would just seem to be a lot more practical and less energy to just bend over and tie your shoes. So when you're chanting a healing mantra, what will happen is the fastest, most productive, easiest path will be produced to you after some time. Now, whether that's after 40 days or whether that's after 125,000 repetitions or whether it's after 1,000,000 repetitions, I can't tell you, because it depends on what level of illusion you have around this particular problem. Okay, I know that I have chanted millions of mantras for certain things, and I have received absolutely no result that is obvious, okay, around that condition. But there would be many other interesting and more beautiful side effects from the discipline. So ultimately, it's always about realizing your truest happiness. It isn't about fulfilling your picture of life, because so often your picture of life has to do with the immense amount of suffering you have and your compensation for it. Now, conduct your own experiments and really be open to what may or may not happen. The more open you are, the more miraculous you will see that mantra chanting can be, or mantra japa, or mantra sadhana. Sadhana is really another word for spiritual discipline. So I hope this helps you understand your beginning journey on the road of mantra. There are many other complicated techniques in different disciplines, but the truth is, just chant them. Gravity works whether you believe in it or not, and so is the same truth with sound. It is the exact same. When you start invoking certain sounds, those sounds will naturally start to tear away at your illusions and at your suffering. So I hope this helps you, and take care for now.